Hi, Chris Bertay from Signet Financial Management of Southwest Florida. In this video, we're going to be discussing the Backdoor Roth IRA, which seems to be a very popular subject recently. A lot of my clients ask about it. And it might sound attractive, but I'm going to suggest to you that there's a couple things to consider. And I'll try not to get on my soapbox, but I'd just like you to consider some of these issues when you're dealing with it. And before we begin, it's important to understand just a few general things about Roth IRAs. Now, first, there's a contribution limit, and that's $5,500 per year. Now, if you're over age 50, there's a catch-up contribution of an extra $1,000 you can make, but there's also a phase-out range for a Roth. Now, the phase-out range means that if you make over a certain amount, you can't contribute. Now, for 2018, you can only contribute if your income is below $189,000. Between $189,000 and $199,000, there's a declining scale of contribution, but anything over $199,000, and you just can't contribute. So here's the idea behind the Backdoor Roth contribution, and I kind of hate to even call it that because the name alone suggests that we're trying to skirt around the edges of the tax rules. But let's say for a second that I have my IRA here and my Roth here. I don't have any money in my IRA and my income is really high. So the idea here is that I make a non-deductible IRA contribution and then I turn around and convert it to my Roth, and the conversion is going to be tax-free because it's after tax money in the IRA, right? So I virtually accomplish the same thing as if I made a Roth contribution in the first place and I skirt around those contribution limits that we just discussed. Now I want to suggest that there's a couple of problems that you may want to consider and look out for. Now the first is you need to be aware that the IRS has the authority to collapse transactions. Now, this is called the step transaction doctrine. The IRS can look at the scenario and say that you took 2 or 3 steps in what you could have done in 1 step, and they have the authority to treat it as if it was done in 1 step. All they got to do is flip a switch and investigate and say, nope, that's excess contribution, and they start collecting fees and penalties for it. Now, there may not be enough with this kind of transaction for the IRS to make a big ordeal out of it, but that's just something for you to consider. Now here's the other potential issue we have. I gave you the situation where you only have 1 IRA. Let's say you have multiple IRAs. And let's assume you have another IRA with $10,000 of pre-tax money. If that's the situation, this conversion does not work the same way at all. The IRA aggregation rules force you to treat both IRAs as if they are one. And if you do, what you really have is 1 IRA with a fair market value of $15,500 and with a basis of $5,500. And even though it's the basis you really want to convert, are you allowed to separate the basis and just convert that? No, you are not. The conversion has to be pro rata, so 2/3 of the conversion would be taxed and 1/3 would be tax-free. So you can't accomplish what you're trying to do if you have any other IRAs. The aggregation is mandated between all traditional, SEP, and simple IRAs. I had a client a couple of years ago who insisted on doing this. He was very high income, and he just insisted on doing it. Now, the only way I was willing to do it is if he would make the IRA contribution, let it sit there and grow some, and then the following year make the conversion. Then it's more difficult for the IRS to make the argument that what was done was in contemplation of doing the second thing. Now, just something to think about. I have clients come to me all the time because they heard it from a golf buddy or whatnot, so I just wanted to offer some precaution when you're considering doing this. Now that wraps up our video on the Backdoor Roth IRA. My partner Jason and I post a lot of content and videos very frequently, so subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Facebook and stay up to date on future content around finance, retirement, and the market. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll place our contact information in the comment section. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all. Thanks so much. Take care.